All right, guys, we are live. Coach Marvin Boxing. I am back in the United States, guys. I just got back probably uh, about an hour and a half ago. About an hour and a half ago. And the first thing I did was run to YouTube to check out the fight. And I just finished watching the fight in its entirety. Uh, I thought it was a great fight. First of all, let me say congratulations to Shakur Stevenson for improving his record to 25-0, for becoming a four division champion, capturing Teofimo Lopez's WBO and Ring Magazine title. You guys can't deny it. The guy is an absolutely brilliant fighter. And I made a prediction video. Some of you guys may have checked it out, some of you may haven't. Uh, I said that Shakur Stevenson would win this fight by unanimous decision. And that's exactly what happened. The scorecards, I think, were 119 to 109. And I did say in that video, I said that he would put on a boxing clinic, and that's what happened in the fight. Now I will say this: I did think it was a 50-50 fight going in. I didn't think Teofimo Lopez would look so bad in the fight. I thought Teofimo Lopez would show up, since this fight was a big fight with huge implications. I gave Teofimo Lopez one round in the fight. I gave him round number one. Shakur Stevenson, I gave him every other round. So it was just a complete shutout, in my opinion. And I talked about how I didn't think Shakur Stevenson should stand in front of Teofimo Lopez in the fight. In my prediction video, I figured that he would use lateral movement and things of that nature, to stick and move per se. But he stood right there in front of Teofimo Lopez and fought a hell of a fight. And to me, he even looked like he was stronger than Teofimo Lopez in the fight. So yeah, I was pretty surprised by that. And I was surprised by, I would say, how Teofimo Lopez's corner didn't have any answers for him. He didn't make any adjustments in the fight, and he was just out there doing the same thing from round one to round 12. No adjustments being made, throwing wild punches, lunging in, being there for the counter, uh, almost getting dropped. I think it was what, round number four. I think Shakur almost dropped him with a left hand. His glove almost touched the canvas. I was just I was in awe of how great Shakur looked, and I was just in disbelief of how bad Teofimo Lopez looked in the fight. He looked pretty amateurish in the fight, if you ask me. I just thought the fight would be more competitive, and it wasn't. Shakur Stevenson put on a hell of a performance. And I hear a lot of people saying that, before the fight, that he was going to run, he was going to do that. And he didn't do any of that. He stood there, he held his ground. And I hear people saying that the fight was boring. I don't know what you guys are looking at. I really don't. When you guys say that, I notice you say that about guys that are pure boxers. They're boring, but the sport is called boxing. Everyone's not going to get knocked out. It's not going to be a knockout in every fight. But when a guy puts on a performance that great, you just have to be in awe of that as a boxing fan. And I think Shakur Stevenson is going to go far. He's going to be a hard guy to beat, in my opinion. He's got all these big dogs in his corner: Terrence Bud Crawford, uh, Andre Ward. He's got these greats surrounding him, and he's soaking up game from these guys. He's going to be one of those guys who's definitely going to be an all-time great, in my opinion. Uh, the only person I see right now giving him any difficulty is probably Devin Haney. They're both great fighters. I would love to see that fight. He's not going to fight Keyshawn Davis because they're homies. But I think right now that's probably the fight for him to make. Even though Devin's at 147 pounds. Now I did see him call Conor Benn in the ring, and some of you guys may know this, some of you guys may not. I don't like to talk bad about fighters. I don't like to bring my personal feelings into it. Let me say that. But some of you guys know I despise Conor Benn. I really despise him because he's one of those guys who hasn't done anything in the sport. He's got caught cheating. He talks down on fighters who've done way more than he has. He talks bad about Devin Haney. He's this, he's that. But Devin Haney's actually done something in the sport of boxing. It kind of reminds me of the Ryan Garcia type, the guys who haven't accomplished anything, but they have so much disdain for certain fighters, guys like Devin, guys like Shakur Stevenson, because these guys know how to box. And I keep saying that, the guy with the better skill set is probably going to come out on top because he's going to be the guy to be able to make adjustments when things go left in the ring. And I said that before this fight. I said that's how Shakur's going to win because he's the pure boxer. Even though Teofimo Lopez can box, he's limited in his ability. You guys saw that tonight. Shakur Stevenson put on a brilliant performance, like I said, and he's going to be hard to beat. So, like I said, I saw the altercation in the ring with him and Conor Benn. I'm going to tell you guys right now, if Conor Benn gets in that ring with Shakur Stevenson, you're going to see another masterclass performance put on by Shakur Stevenson. Conor Benn hasn't done anything except, be on performance-enhancing drugs, the egg stuff, and beating a drained fighter. So, yeah, I would love to see that next. I would love to see Shakur Stevenson shut this guy up. I really do. And I see the game that he's playing. He's going after, guys like Rolly. He wants to fight guys like Rolly. He wants to fight guys like Ryan Garcia. Guys he know that, they're probably going to stand in front of him and be an easy fight. He doesn't want to fight a guy who's a mover because, it's going to be harder to beat a guy like that. You have to make adjustments for guys like that. That's why they're always running from fighters like Devin Haney and Shakur Stevenson. They're boring. When I hear that, I already know what the deal is. They feel like they can't beat those guys. Styles make fights. You guys know that. What are you guys talking about here? Greater than Mayweather? I think that even though he's surrounded by Terrence Bud Crawford, to me, he looks more like a Mayweather type fighter, in my opinion. He doesn't have I would say the aggression of a Terrence Bud Crawford. Crawford's more of an offensive fighter. I think Shakur is more of a defensive fighter. And he just reminds me more of Floyd Money Mayweather Jr. That kid's going to be great, man. If he sticks on the straight and narrow and keeps those guys around him, mark my word, he's going to be great. I think, this version of Shakur Stevenson, he gives Devin Haney a run for his money. And I would be, I don't know who wins that fight. Both of those guys have a great jab. You guys saw how great Shakur's jab was in this fight. I was just in awe. He just seemed to improve a lot to me. He looked great at 140. So we're going to see what happens next. Like I said, Conor Benn looks like he's next on the list. I just want him to take that fight because I want him to shut that guy up. Should he stay at 140? I think he said something about going back to 135. I hope he doesn't. I think there's bigger fights for him at 140, 147. But we'll see with that. But guys, I did see. Oh my God, I saw the Gerald Miller. He was wearing a wig. What the hell's going on? Why would you get into the ring with a hair unit on? I don't know who that guy was he was fighting, but the guy hit him with an uppercut, looks like, and his hair just kind of flew off. What's up with that? Let me see if I can pull it up here. Hold on for a second, guys. I think I can get it here. Is this it? I don't know if you guys can see that. Did you guys see that? His hair piece just flew off of his head. There's no way you're ever gonna live that down. If you're bald, man, you're bald. Just cut it off. Don't glue hair pieces on your head. That was diabolical, man. He's never gonna live that down. And as much trash as Big Baby Miller talks, man, I'm sure the memes have already started. I haven't seen any yet, but I'm sure they're out there. What are you guys talking about here? Connor Ben's a dog, a drug cheat. Yeah, definitely he's a drug cheat. Not a dog, but a drug cheat. That was the most attention he ever got tonight. He was so happy. He had the little luster silk thing going in his hair. Uh, he's not going to be able to beat Shakur Stevenson. He doesn't want to fight Devin Haney. He calls Devin Haney boring. Uh, that lets me know that he knows that style matchup is all wrong for him. I you know I know a lot of you guys see the game. You see right through it with some of these guys. When you're limited in your abilities as a fighter, you're not going to be able to beat certain guys. That's why it's so important as a boxer to be well-rounded. To be able to make adjustments when things don't go your way. That's what made Terrence Bud Crawford so great as a fighter. He could do it all. He took his craft seriously. Some people they're so, I would say, enamored by power that they just forget everything else. They want to have the great equalizer. You're looking for that one big punch, and I think that's what Teofimo Lopez was doing tonight. He was looking for that big shot, and he couldn't get it. He could not get it. So it behooves you as a fighter to work on your footwork. Make sure you have a great jab. A great jab can take you far as a fighter. It'll never let you down. But these guys just don't get it. They want to go in there and they want to swing for the fences. And that may be exciting to casuals. I get excitement from it from time to time, but I do like boxing itself. I like the sport. I understand the sport, what's going on in the ring. I'm not going to say that was a boring fight. That was an entertaining fight. Very entertaining. It was a one-sided fight, but it was an entertaining fight. It was entertaining to watch Shakur Stevenson just put on that performance. You have to, respect that. You have to respect the kid for what he's doing. But anyway, I'm going to get out of these clothes, guys. I got home and I found out that my heat's not working. My house is ice cold right now. So I got to call somebody in the morning and find out what's going on. I've been gone for almost a month. And anytime you're gone that long, it's always going to be something that happens. So I'm sitting up in my coat right now, and I'm in the Midwest, and it snowed an awful lot. So I got to dig everything out probably tomorrow. But I did want to get on here and talk about this fight. I thought, this is one of those fights that could get people excited about the sport again. I think the next fight, who do we have next? I think Ryan is fighting next. Him and Mario Barrios. I think that's in February. We'll see what happens with that. I think Barrios is going to pull it off, but we'll talk about that another time. But anyway, thanks for tuning in, guys. I guess I'll talk to you guys next time. Let me know how you feel about the fight tonight. Let me know how you feel about Shakur Stevenson. Who do you think he should fight next? Teofimo Lopez. Do you guys think it's over for him? He did a lot of trolling before the fight, and he had egg all over his face tonight. His eyes, both of his eyes, look like they're just huge. They're sitting up because he was getting banged in both of them. But you guys, let me know what you think about that. Honestly, I think that Teofimo Lopez needs a new trainer. Listening to his father, he didn't know what he was talking about up in there. That was ridiculous. That was absolutely ridiculous. I think he does need a new trainer if he expects to do anything else in the sport of boxing. They had no answers in that ring tonight. I was disappointed in his performance tonight. But anyway, you guys let me know how you feel about it in the comment section. It's the CMB. I'll talk to you guys in the next one. and I'm out. Peace.